Baby steps?
It means setting small, reasonable goals for yourself, one day at a time. One tiny step at a time.
Baby steps.
Baby steps. Oh boy.
Baby steps.
Hello there, my name is Jay, and this is going to be a special episode of this podcast. It's going to be on a topic that I sort of teased in the first episode, and I thought today would be the most appropriate day to talk about it. Today's episode is going to be all about my dad, the relationship that I had with him, the ups and downs, the time that he got sick, and then everything leading up to his passing. And this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while because a lot of how I was around my dad, how he was around me, as well as his passing, it is a big component as to why I really want to get my life together. So why don't I just start somewhere around the beginning? For a good chunk of my childhood, my dad, he was my idol. He was the fun parent. My mom was the strict parent. Not to say she's not fun, I mean, she does like to be jokey, but there was sort of a good cop, bad cop almost dynamic with their parenting styles towards me and my sister. He was the fun parent, my mom was the stricter parent. He liked cracking jokes, he liked cracking a lot of jokes, he liked making weird, silly noises. He would read bedtime stories to me every single night. Sometimes his bedtime stories would just be science facts, because he was a big science guy. He was a very smart guy, very tech savvy, loved rocketry, loved NASA, loved all that kind of stuff. He actually built his own, hover rocket. It's not really a rocket, but he called it a quad pod. You could almost say it's like a four-legged stool that would hover in place and balance itself out so that it would always stay in the same position as it was hovering. Wouldn't hover for very long, but that was something he was really into. He loved doing that kind of stuff. Other things that he would do, he would draw a lot of pictures. Like if there was a movie that I just saw that I was really into, he would draw characters from that movie. I remember him drawing Star Kid, this movie that came out in the late 90s that is this really creepy looking alien body suit thing. But I was into that when I was a kid, and he drew that for me. And I thought it was really cool. He drew a lot of the characters from Small Soldiers, which was something I was also really into. And speaking of Small Soldiers, one of the fondest memories that I have of my dad, I was 5 or 6 years old, something like that. He knew that I wanted to play Squad Commander, but it was just too complicated for me. I was still playing humongous entertainment games. I was playing Putt-Putt, Freddy Fish, that kind of stuff. Anything that wasn't that, I did not know how to play. But my dad did this really awesome thing. He played the entire game from start to finish while I was watching him so that I could experience that game. I know there's a lot of other things that he has done in my life when he was around that are probably more important, more impactful, that did a lot to shape who I was as a person, whether it be good or bad. But him doing that for me, playing that game, which I don't even know if he was into or if he was just kind of annoyed with it the whole time. But that is without a doubt the coolest memory that I have of my dad. And there's a lot of cool things that he did for me. In Boy Scouts, he built me a winning Pinewood Derby car. The first time that I ever did Pinewood Derby. And like I said, my dad, very smart. He knew how to make that car the perfect weight, the perfect dimensions, everything that it needed to be in order to be as fast as possible. The only thing that I really contributed to the car is I think I painted it, and that was it. Actually, I don't even know if I painted it. I think he might have painted it for me. I just told him what I wanted. I wanted it to be a red car with flame decals on the side, and that's what it was. I went to a Boy Scout meetup. The first time I ever did a Pinewood Derby with other troops, kids that I didn't know. I don't know how many kids were there. I would say maybe 100. It's probably less than that. Actually, it's probably a lot less than that. But it did seem like a lot, at least at the age that I was. And I think I was in first grade, maybe second. That car that my dad made for me won every single race. Every time you win a race, you get a blue ribbon. If you come in second, you get a red ribbon. At least this is how it was when I did the My Pinewood Derby. I left that day with 10 blue ribbons and a massive trophy that was probably about the same size as I was at that age. And I still have that car, Although it's missing a wheel, which I'm a little bit sad about, so I might just have to see if I can pluck one off another Pinewood Derby car that I have and stick it on there. It's going to need a paint job because all the wheels that were on it had silver axles or something. It just looked like someone took a silver Sharpie and just painted over the tires, basically. But yeah, I'm going to have to fix that up. I don't care about the trophy. I don't care about the ribbons. I just want to keep that car. He was my Boy Scout leader for a couple of years. Actually, it's this really weird thing where the school that I went to for a good chunk of my childhood closed down. And me and a couple of my friends that were all together in the same troop that were looking for a different troop, we went to my neighbor's place. They had a bunch of kids from their troop already. So the leader of that troop did this really weird thing and just had the newbies, as I think we were called, be like a sub troop. They had like 10 to 15 kids, and we were just 5. And my dad was the leader of that for a couple of years. He was very involved with that, and like I said, he was very involved with, I guess more so my sister's sports than my sports. Like he was my sister's coach for softball for like a year or two. Like he did a lot of stuff for us when we were kids, and that is something that I noticed when we were growing up, is that he really enjoyed us when we were kids. And I even noticed this when he would be around my niece and nephew. He loved being jokey. He loved being silly. He loved making silly sounds, singing weird things around them. He loved being a grandpa. He just loved to entertain kids. And I actually kind of get that a lot. That's something that I understand more now as I'm getting older, because for me, it is a lot easier to talk and hang out with my niece and nephew than it is most of my other relatives. I like entertaining kids as well. I think it's really cool when they want my attention. They want me to do something for them. They're comfortable around me. It's a really cool feeling. So I totally understand why my dad would be like that around kids. But as me and my sister grew up, I think it was a little different. Now, I can't speak so much to the relationship between my sister and my dad, so I'll just speak about the relationship that I had with my dad growing up. I don't remember the exact age it was, but there was a point where he and I didn't really get along that well anymore. I wouldn't say there was like a hate between us, but there was definitely an awkwardness. As I was getting older, just somewhere along the way, we just kind of stopped talking to each other. Or at least we wouldn't say that much around each other. There was always this massive discomfort anytime we were just the only two in a room together, especially in a car, because he would drive me around a lot. It wouldn't just be to, he would drive me around a lot to school, to any appointments that I needed to go to. And even in the past couple of years, when, before his passing, he and I would take these 6-hour trips every month, just do a little bit of maintenance with a condo that my parents would rent out, which was kind of their business after my dad retired. Like, he put all his attention into this condo. It was actually a couple of condos, but that's kind of what he got into. He got into the rental business, I guess. I don't really know. I didn't really understand it that much myself, but I know that was something that he was very involved with. And we would have to go down every single month, not only just to check on that, but also to do a couple other things as well. And it would be a 6-hour drive there and a 6-hour drive back. And we would stay there for a few days. And we wouldn't talk much. The ride there, the ride back, we would barely say a word. I think the only times that we would really speak up is if one of us was hungry. We would just say, do you want to eat lunch now? That's about it. Most of the time, I would just have headphones on, doing something else. Maybe just staring out the window. Maybe I'd be asleep. Maybe I'd be faking being asleep, which I had done many times. And like I said, I can't really tell you the exact moment that kind of changed things. It was just sort of a very slow decline. Maybe it's when I changed schools. Maybe it's when I hit puberty. Maybe it's when I stopped being the way I was when I was a kid. I was not this goofy, talkative person. I mean, I'd always be like very, very quiet around adults, but with kids, I would love to just goof around. And when I hit puberty, that just wasn't the case anymore. I would freeze up around everybody, even kids my own age. I wouldn't talk to anybody, except for just one or two kids that, for whatever reason, I just latched onto. I would talk to them, I would be totally comfortable around them, but everyone else, nope, not the case. I just felt like I wasn't myself anymore. And maybe my dad saw that too, and he didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know what to do about it. In fact, I was even on for a little bit of time. I was on some antidepressants, or I was on Zoloft. I guess it's an antidepressant. I was on that for a few years in high school, and even that amount of time, I still didn't talk that much to my dad, and he wouldn't talk that much to me. And having time to reflect on it, while I cannot remember the specific moment where things changed, I think the day that he stopped being jokey around me and silly around me and stopped trying to make me laugh, that was the day where I just wasn't comfortable anymore around him. I'm sure he saw me and thought I wasn't being myself anymore as I was going through changes, as I was going through puberty and just being very uncomfortable in my own skin. And maybe that changed him as well, not knowing how to deal with me. I'm not sure, but that's how it was for probably 15 plus years. Because here's the thing, my dad was very supportive, always put his family first, always made sure we were looked after and that we didn't have to worry. He was very supportive. I really enjoyed movies. He took me to a lot of movies. Sometimes we would talk maybe 5 minutes about them after we saw them, but that was about it. I will say that I have been wanting and needing help for a long time. I knew that I was not happy and that I was not in a good place in life. I was not in a good mental state. I was not living. I was not doing anything to be an adult. I was not doing anything fulfilling. I was not doing anything at all. And I desperately wanted to change that. And it wasn't just that because I had no responsibilities, I was, I guess, fine with not doing stuff on my own. A good chunk, a good reason of why I didn't do this sooner is because of how uncomfortable I was around my dad. I did not know how to just speak up and tell him, Dad, I need some help. I'm not in a good place. I don't know if I need someone to talk to. I don't know if I need medication. I don't know if I need both or neither or something more extreme. But whatever is going on with me right now is not good and I desperately need to change it. I could not do that. I was afraid of my dad. As simple as that. That's exactly what it was. I was afraid because it felt like neither of us wanted to be around each other. There was such a disconnect between me and him that I don't think either of us could handle. And I don't think either of us knew how to fix. And now I want to talk about his passing. And this was all during COVID. This was all during like the 2 or 3 years where people were just afraid to go outside. Slowly things were kind of returning to normal, but there was still a lot of people that just didn't trust it. And my dad was like that. My mom was like that. I was like that because I was living with them. So to the best of my memory, here's how it went down. In December of 2021, me and my parents were down at one of those condos. This was the beginning of December. We were there for a couple of weeks and then we decided to head back home. 6-hour drive back home. But when we get back, my dad's not feeling well. We really hope it's not COVID, but I don't think he got tested for that or we did any tests for that. I think he was just feeling a little under the weather. At least that's what it seemed like at first. But every day, since that first day when he wasn't feeling well, he got worse. He got sicker. He got weaker. There was one point where he was in the bathroom and as he was getting up, he collapsed on the floor. There was a loud thud that woke me up. I didn't really think much of it until my mom comes running towards my room, opens my door, very panicked, wakes me up, tells me, you need to help. You need to help me right now. I go into their bathroom and he's just on the floor. He's breathing. He's looking around. He's mumbling. But it seems like he has no strength at all to get himself up. And right then and there, we should have made a call. We should have had an ambulance come pick him up. Or tried to take him to the hospital. Or done something that moment, that day. But we didn't. We gave him an extra day because he asked for an extra day. We were very concerned about him. We really wanted him to go to the hospital, but he kept saying, no, no, no. And I would hear this so many times. It was a phrase that drove me crazy for years every time I would hear it. Anytime I would hear anybody say, no, no, no. Just like that. It would put me in the worst mood. It would immediately anger every bit of my body and make me want to just slam my head through a door or out a window or something. against our better judgment, we gave him an extra day to relax at home, not have to worry about the hospital, because that's what he wanted. But the very next day, he did go to the hospital. And that in that day that he was at the hospital, it seemed like he was bouncing back. He was getting better. Things were under control. He was starting to gain a little strength back. He was starting to gain a little of his old self back. But that was just that day. In fact, I think things changed for the worst nighttime. Me and my mom back at home, we're starting to feel a little more relaxed. We're thinking, okay, things are under control. He's doing fine. Then she gets a call. It's from my dad at the hospital. And he's mumbling and he's panicking. And he keeps saying he doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know what's going on. And my mom's just trying to make sense of this. Eventually, a nurse just takes the phone from my dad and just kind of explains what's going on. And the phone call just ends shortly after. I think we were both really hoping that was going to be the worst of it. But then, my mom gets a call the next morning that my dad had lost consciousness twice. He did not have a DNR. In fact, there were a lot of things that he did not have set up, including a last will, which made everything after his death very complicated and very troublesome, especially for my mom. I had never heard of the word probate before. I never want to hear it ever again. I feel like my mom lost 10 years of her life going through all of that stuff. So after they brought him back for the second time, I think he was in a medically induced coma. To the best of my knowledge, that was the best way I could make sense of it. Because he wasn't speaking, he wasn't really responding or looking around or doing anything. I think his eyes were shut for, I want to say a month, like 4 or 5 weeks, something like that. I just know that we weren't getting anything out of him. My mom was visiting my dad 8 hours almost every single day. She would go there, visit him for 4 hours, come back. She would sleep or she would eat. I don't think she would do both. She would do one or the other, and then she would go back out for another 4 hours. She did this almost every single day she could. The only days that she really couldn't do this is when we had a freeze and the roads were icy, so there's just no way she was able to do that. And then days where she just needed to sleep, she would call my sister and just be like, can you go visit him for a little bit? I don't want him to be alone today. I know something that really bothered my mom, and it's something she never forgot about, and I don't think she will ever forget about. Most of the doctors and nurses that would come in and check on my dad, they were trying to be positive. They were trying to say all the right things, or at least all the positive things to my mom, and pretty much only the positive things to my mom. They didn't want to worry her. But one doctor just kind of put it very bluntly, very simply. He tells my mom, this is not good. You really should have brought him in a day earlier. We don't know if that would have made a difference, but knowing that we gave him an extra day at home to relax before being taken to the hospital, yeah, those words are going to sting. Those words are going to stick around. We went to go see him on Christmas Day in the hospital, and that was actually the first time that I had seen him hooked up to all these different machines. It is easily the gloomiest Christmas I'd ever had. It didn't even feel like Christmas. This was the first time in my life that I had ever experienced how numbing severe depression could feel. And by numbing, I mean I was in such a haze, not really knowing how to process anything, that I just kind of felt nothing else. I was never hungry. I was never bored. I could just lay in bed all day, stare at the ceiling, stare at a wall, and be completely unfazed. I had never felt like that ever before in my life. A couple weeks later, about the middle of January, my sister and my mom kind of sit me down one day to explain to me what is going to happen. And it seemed like they were going to make sure that my dad passes away peacefully. They weren't getting any sort of response out of him, so they thought this was the next step for him. And I didn't know how to take that news. It's strange to say this, but certainly there have been people in my life that have passed away, but none of them ever really affected me. None of the funerals I ever went to, none of the relatives that ever passed left an impact on me because I wasn't close with them. So we thought that middle of January was going to be the last time that it was going to be around. We had to prepare for his passing. I forget exactly what day it was, but I think it was the day before we were supposed to go in and see him. My mom gets another call. And on the phone, It is a nurse who is very excited. She says his eyes are open. He's looking around. He's awake. We thought this was the first good sign that he was coming back to us. December was the month where he got sick. January was the month when it seemed like we were going to lose him, and then he came back. February was the month where he kept being moved around from the hospital to a rehabilitation center, which we thought was good news. We thought this meant that they're just gonna try to get him up and active and move him around and make sure that everything's working all right. That's not really what it was. He just went there because the hospital didn't want to deal with him anymore. I think they were only allowed to have him for like 30 days or a month or something, and then he just had to be moved somewhere else. That's pretty much all February was. It was just him moving around from hospital to rehabilitation, back to hospital, and eventually to another rehabilitation center. Different from the first one. In the time that he was moved back to the hospital, he was suffering many different infections, and this is why he was moved back to the hospitals, because the first rehabilitation center, they didn't know what to do with him. They didn't know how to deal with any of these things that were going on with him, so he had to immediately be moved back to the hospital so those infections that he was experiencing could be attended to. That was the first time that I think I ever saw him actually awake, with his eyes looking around. He wasn't talking. In fact, I think the entire time that he was awake, he had never talked. Anytime that he would move his mouth or anytime he would say something, even though he wasn't really saying anything, he would just be mimicking someone else's mouth movements, or whatever someone says, he would just repeat it. His mind was gone, and I just didn't know that for a while. He was never going to be himself again. He was never going to come back. In this amount of time, we were also dealing with a very sick dog that was having a lot of accidents in the house, wasn't moving around, wasn't eating his food. We kept entertaining the idea of keeping that dog around because we wanted to make sure that our dog, his dog as well, was still there when he came back home. But by the end of February, as much as we would have loved to have tried to keep that dog around, we knew that our dog was not in any state to continue. Beginning of March, my mom and my sister, they come back from visiting my dad at the second rehabilitation center that he was sent to, and they want to have a talk with me. And it's not a good talk. They tell me that we were only gonna have him for a few more weeks. And so in this amount of time, we do our best to visit him every single day that we can, because my mom really does not, and she said this a few times, my mom really did not want him to be alone when he passed. She did not want that to happen. So the second rehabilitation center that he went to turned out to be hospice. For some reason, they were calling it a rehabilitation center. I don't know why. Maybe part of it was, but the part he was in certainly wasn't. It was a very sad place to be. A tiny gray room. He's off to the corner by the window. He can't even look out the window if he wanted to. He's not in a way to even look out of it. And if he did, all he's going to see is just brick. Lighting was very dim in there. I think only one of the lights in that room worked, not all of them. And that place had the audacity to call that part of the building the Oasis. So a few weeks go by, and we're visiting him every day. We're trying to stay positive as much as we can. We know this is the end, but we're trying to make the most of it. Fast forward to about halfway through March. My mom gets a call about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and that's when we find out. So me, my mom, my sister go over there, and we see his body. Not even him anymore, just his body for the last time. And it's something I never wanted to see. I never wanted to see him like that. I never wanted to see him the way that he was those 3 months. But there he was, in the corner of that very dreary room with the dim lighting. Eyes wide open, mouth wide open, cheeks very sunken in, body very skinny, skin color very gray. It really did look like the life was just sucked right out of him. I remember my mom telling me something my dad said to her. He wanted my mom to make a promise that no matter what, he would not die the same way that his dad did. His dad died in a hospital bed. He didn't want that. My mom tried to reassure me that she kept her promise because he technically did not die in a hospital. He died in hospice, but you know what? I think that's worse. The way I see it is where he died, how long it took for him to die while he was in this mush mind state. I didn't even say there was so many things that was going wrong with him. It wasn't just his mind. The reason that he got put in the hospital in the first place, he had pneumonia in one of his lungs. And while he was in the hospital, he ended up getting it in both lungs. He also had renal failure, which is kidney failure, AFib. He was dealing with all that, and there was no way they could focus on one thing and try to fix it, because if they did, the other two would just be getting worse. So they had to just kind of stabilize everything as is for as long as possible until they couldn't anymore. For 3 months, really, nobody knew what to do with him. And that's the truth of it. Like, I remember my mom getting the death certificate and looking at it and being like, I have never seen so many causes of death on one of these before. I don't think anybody knew what to specifically put as the cause of death, so they just tried to cover all their bases. Now I'm kind of put in the same headspace that my dad was in, and I hope I don't die like him. I don't consider myself a religious person. In fact, I try to be kind of neutral about religion. Or I guess if I'm being more honest, I just try not to think about religion at all. I don't want that as a part of my life. I don't want that to be something that affects my life. I just don't want to worry about what happens after we die. So I don't consider myself religious, but pretty much every single day that my dad was in the hospital, I was praying. I didn't know what to say, but I would just kind of say what was on my mind, what I was feeling, and I'd always make sure that all my prayers were for my dad. And even when I knew he was going to pass, I still prayed. And it just really stinks. I did not start praying until my mom got that phone call that one morning that things had taken a really bad turn for my dad. I started praying a day too late after he had hit the point of no return. And after he passed away, I stopped praying. And I'm just going to kind of wrap up this real bummer of an episode. I would apologize, but I knew this was going to be this way. So why would I kind of run through all these details about my dad, apart from it just being Father's Day? What really sparked me to talk about this, all this stuff, with all the ups and downs, with my relationship with my dad, the great moments when I was a kid, the not so great moments when I got older, being too afraid to talk to him, and then everything that happened with his death. I'd really hate to think that it's true, but I do believe sometimes that I never would have gotten to the point of really trying to reinvent my life and better my life if my dad hadn't died. And I think that might actually be true. Actually, no, I know that that's true. But his passing didn't just make me speak up and say that I need help, I need to change my life. His passing also made me more conscious of my own health. Knowing that there were so many different things wrong with him, it wasn't just one thing. It made me want to take better care of my own body. I will say it also made me very germophobic. I mean, COVID had something to do with it, but his passing even more so. Thank you to anybody who listened to this. I really appreciate it. Sorry that it was a bummer. But I had to talk about this for an episode because everything that went on with my dad, both before his passing and after, was a huge reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now. Promise I will do something more uplifting and very different from this next time. Alright? But until then, once again, my name is Jay. Happy Father's Day. Love you, Dad. And bye for now.